Okay, we're going to continue the meeting with agenda item 2, which is the Welcome and Committee Chairs report, and I'm going to be very brief on that because of time. I want to thank the Commissioner for coming to Houston last month to speak with the Gulf Coast area superintendents about issues of mutual concern and receiving input from them. I appreciate your doing that. After that, I wanted the board members to know that we went over to a high school and listened to input from a school district with their high school principal and their college coordinator regarding some of the issues that are coming up, in particular the student finance issue. So I want to thank you for doing that and being open to their input. Agenda item 3 is consideration of adopting the minutes from the June 11th, 2008 committee meeting and minutes from the July 23rd, 2008 joint committee meeting of the Academic Excellence and Research Committee and the Participation and Success Committee. May I have a motion to adopt the minutes from the June 11th committee meeting and the July 23rd, 2008 joint committee meeting? So moved. Second. Moved by Lorraine Mendoza, seconded by Lynn Phillips. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Agenda item 4 is the discussion of the Texas College Readiness Mandates, Responsibilities, and Deadlines document. Dr. Judy Laredo, Assistant Commissioner for P16 Initiatives, will present this agenda item. And I just wanted to say to my colleagues that we have certainly looked at this with a great deal of concern and attention, but it just kept getting pushed back on the agenda item. So I asked Dr. Laredo to put this at the beginning so that we could all have an opportunity to provide feedback. So thank you for doing that.
You're quite welcome, Laurie. Let me also say that in your packet you have 2 versions. You have the original version that you crafted before I came on board, and then for us to be able to follow it and to keep up with it.
Hold on 1 second. No, Trey is not a voting member, but there's 3 of the committee members, which is a quorum, it's my understanding. Yep. Okay, yes. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Should have remembered that.
And they're all sitting together.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, there's 2 versions. The version which you all had originally crafted, and so in looking at it as a way that I could provide updates for you every month, I sort of just modified it a little bit so that it would be easier to follow, as well as including the amount of money that we have expended so far. So the very first one in your packet is what we have done, so that you will know, number 1, what the objective is that we're addressing in the total of the 8 House Bill 1 objectives, the purpose, work plan, any issues there might be, the current status of where we are, and the next steps. So this way, every month we will continue with this same process and bring you up to date. What I have done also in the essence of time is to do a little PowerPoint which highlights some of those key initiatives so that you are aware of where we are with them. So this is what I would like to address at this point. Starting out with objective number 1, which is defining the standards and expectation for college readiness. Currently, we are, and that's on page 2 of your document, so you can follow where I'm at. The coordinating board and TEA are working right now with the vertical teams in completing the gap analysis between the college readiness standards and TEKS. And the coordinating board will here report on the higher ed CRS gap analysis at its October meeting. So you will see what work has been done, what the results are, and that is on the agenda for you in October. The second objective of importance is the alignment exit level public ed assessment with entry level IHE expectations. And this relates to the end of course assessment. And a national panel of experts just recently met, in fact, I guess it was last Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. The commissioner was present. TEA did call the meeting to discuss the end of course assessments in terms of where we are and what the next steps are. The result of that meeting, they looked, of course, at what they are doing with math and English language arts, and then the issue of science and social studies, of course, has arisen. Those courses are not as sequential, they're not in a sequential format as English and mathematics are. And so there will be a follow-up meeting to that in November, and I think it's scheduled for November the 17th. I don't know if you want the commissioner to make any comment. Debbie Hyatt was also there at that meeting. I was not. I was in Washington at the Achieve meeting.
No, you covered it well.
The second part of that is a test alignment study, which is a study on the alignment of the current TSI assessment and the adopted college readiness standards, which would...
1 second. We need another, oh, it's over there.
It's over here.
Oh, I'm
Extra stuff. You don't have it?
outline? Yeah, I got one.
Oh, here. I'm sorry.
Hey, do you have a copy? Look and where, see where that clip is?
Yeah.
Right behind it, that one. No. Okay. Go ahead.
The test alignment study will be finished in November of 2008, and so that is still in the process. Objective number 3 is looking at the infusion of PKs to grades 12, the curriculum with the appropriate rigor to academically prepared students. And that's a pathway project that I'm sure Elaine is quite familiar with, that we have in San Antonio. And the San Antonio data collection is completed and being reviewed right now by the teams. You know, that's the cohort team of public school with junior college with the university, and connecting the students' progress as they enter those courses from high school into the college arena. And currently, too, Houston is considering participating in that pathway project, and another one that may possibly sign up will be El Paso, with the El Paso Community College and UTEP, etc. So that program is really showing in terms of the data and what the teams are doing in looking at curriculum improvement and seeing that what is effective, what is being done at the high school level is effective to transition students to the college level to be successful. So I think you'll look forward to more information on that as we move with that. Objective number 5 is creating a college-going culture, and that, of course, has to do with the college connections. And standardized forms have been disseminated to all funded projects for 2009, and the reports on the outcomes of 2008 will be presented to you at the October board meeting, so that you will see how many students and what has taken place since that inception. The P16 councils are collaborating with the college readiness advisors to coordinate regional meetings, which will start, I think, October the 20th, is the 13 regional meetings which you had approved funding for previously at your board meeting. Well, we have teamed the efforts of the college advisors, college readiness advisors, with the P16 councils, also along with those people that will be invited to those meetings, so that we can really get the cohorts working together and understanding the impact of the college readiness standards on teaching and on students. We do have the list of all those regional meetings. If you would like a copy, I can certainly provide that for you. The objective number 6 is looking at the educator professional component of House Bill 1, and I'm really excited about that because there's some initiatives that are really in place that are really brand new. But the Math, Science, and Technology Teacher Prep Academies is not new. You know that we had 2 of those previously. You approved an RFP which was let out, and I think right now we have 6 that have just been recently submitted by the deadline, and so those are in the review process. And I will next time at the next meeting give you an update on where we are with those. The other part of that is the College Readiness Initiative that is being spearheaded by our unit under the direction of Dr. Susan Barnes. and Araceli Ortiz, who is new to our staff, and that is with working with 4 universities in the state at looking at the faculty really development in terms of educator preparation and infusing those standards in their curricula as they prepare pre-service teachers. And so those colleges have come to the table to assist us, and they're listed in your report: Texas State, UT Austin, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and UT Arlington. Each of them will be addressing a specific area of the college readiness standards, and we will have meetings throughout the state sponsored by those universities to assist the faculty in looking at their curricular offerings and infusing those college readiness standards. I also have the dates for those, all 3 except for one. We're just pending the last one. The Objective 7 is coordinating activities with goals of the CTG, and you're going to later this morning, in just a few minutes, going to be hearing a report, so I don't want to go into that part. But work has been done with the lexile of courses, and you have that report in your packet. The Developmental Ed Symposium is a reality. It is scheduled for October the 12th through the 14th. The Commissioner has invited a distinguished panel of experts from across the country, not specifically in the developmental education area, but certainly specifically in the area that affects and impacts teaching and learning and the development of student knowledge, especially in the core areas of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And we also have a meeting scheduled for next week with a small cadre of community college representatives to discuss the Commissioner's initiative in terms of the funding and the programmatic components and redesign of developmental education. That meeting will be held here at the coordinating board, so we will keep you posted on those 2 events. Yes, sir.
I think I may have mentioned this to somebody, maybe it was you, that I've heard a desire that we look a little bit at our developmental ed data. At that symposium, or at least that it be raised as an area that also needs work, is the data that we have on developmental ed, that maybe we invite people that are interested in that aspect to it.
We actually have invited people who take a different view of the data than we do.
Okay, good. Well, isn't that always the case?
It just makes interesting discussion.
Yes, good.
The 7th objective is the coordination of activities and goals for CTG, and of course this is a Texas course redesign project, and you know that is looking at the specific core courses and the redesign of those. Dr. Vanessa Davis in the other unit of the house across the hall from me has been involved in that, and I think she's in the room. There she is. I don't know if you might have any questions of her. Specifically, too, connected with this is the Texas Learning Objectives Repository expansion. One has to do with the digital knowledge that is taken from this course redesign that then becomes a support system either to enhance courses or to in terms of course delivery. And she can answer any more specifics. I do have a listing of the schools that are involved in the course redesign, the courses themselves, as well as the second phase that does involve, I think, UT Austin, and you might want to, because this is really moving. I was excited when I listened to her description yesterday.
I think all of you have by now seen the list of the institutions that are either have been or are currently involved in all 4 phases of the course redesign project. What is and those courses are continuing. Some have finished their implementation, some have piloted, some are ongoing. The phase 3 projects are halfway through their 2-year cycle. Our phase 4 projects are a quarter of the way through. What is probably most exciting right now is the Texas Learning Objects Repository expansion. The University of North Texas's Center for Digital Knowledge, under the directorship of Dr. Bill Moen, had created a proof of concept that we had funded in both phase 2 and phase 3 of the course redesign projects. They were only interested in the research and the development. They didn't want to do the care and the feeding and the maintenance and the expansion. At the July board meeting, at the agency operations meeting, we were given authority to execute a memorandum of understanding with the University of Texas system through the UT telecampus. It's a 3-year memorandum of understanding, $450,000 on our part, and they are matching that. University of Texas System is matching with $450,000 on their part to expand the Texas Learning Objects Repository. Our portion of it will start with being seeded by course redesign materials. We already have the University of North Texas's Phase 1 project, U.S. History 1, developed by Dr. Kelly McMichael, that is in that. We'll be doing a workshop on October 10th that's open to all curriculum and instruction professionals, as well as all U.S. history faculty across the state. We'll be bringing them in here. We'll also be webcasting that. Dr. McMichael and her team will be coming down. They'll talk about the materials, work with faculty to show how they can adapt and use the materials in their own courses. And then that afternoon, Dr. Moen will be here, and he's going to walk faculty through the use of the soft rollout of the beta version of the Learning Objects Repository. So we will actually have faculty that will be accessing and using this as early as the end of this month. At the same time, the telecampus is working with us and starting this 3-year expansion. So we have the potential within 3 to 5 years to have one of the largest digital learning objects repositories in the nation. And this is generating a great deal of interest across the nation, particularly with the Southern Region Education Board.
I thought you'd like to hear
That's
all of
great.
that.
Thank you.
That is a quick summary of what is in your document. And let me also say that this document, you know, is part of the big P16 state plan that was approved. The plan was written, I think, in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. And this December, we must submit an update of all this material, in essence, to the legislature. We are currently working with TEA in the update of this document from both sides so that it can be presented again to you in October for submission to the legislature by December the 1st, after, of course, the two commissioners have read it. So everything that you're seeing here that's an update is really not an effort in futility. It keeps us on track with what we ultimately have to address and respond to with the legislature. So that will conclude this item.
All right, comments? Dr.
One
Phillips?
more question. Have the concerns about career tech and college readiness, are we addressing them as we go along? Is that in here somewhere?
Yes, yes, we are, and it's part of the alignments, and it's
Okay.
also looking at the course level of the books, which you're going to hear the report on. So it's all in there.
Thank you. Any other questions? This was really helpful. Thank you.
And I will continue to update it every month. I will also continue to update it financially so that you will see where we are on target in terms of our expenditures for each of these projects. And let me also add that what we are going to be doing in the next couple of months as an entire division, and along with the assistance of Evelyn Hyatt in terms of looking at this college readiness funding, is identifying the projects that this money is being used for so that it's connecting us to closing the gaps, so that we have a continuum that is a framework that is not disconnected but is connected to everything we do. So this really has been a good model. I just had to modify it so it would make it easier for us to do each month.
Yeah, I think that's a lot clearer.
I'd like to say that I am now weaned from this, so you don't have to.
Oh, good. Thank you.
And I'm trying. Ms. Mendoza?
Yeah, just as quick snapshots. I know the PowerPoint was very high level and brief and very informative as well. Are there any areas that you're worried about that we may be falling short or have some major barriers?
No, it's not that I'm afraid we're going to fall short. My concern right now is the delivery of this message, not only to the education community, but more importantly also to the parent community. an understanding of what this closing of the gap means, what it means for their students, what it means in terms of curriculum. Those are the agendas that we really have to hash out. Efforts are being put in place not only to meet with the academic side, looking at the university side, looking at the counseling side, with the college access grant. Things are coming to place with that. But there's other agendas out there with a much larger community that I am interested in beginning to really look at. The PTA Association has already approached me this past month asking to work with us to begin to work with parent communities out there to help get this message out, English and Spanish, whatever community it is in, so that they also have an understanding. While the P16 councils, the community, business community is working to get together with public ed, higher ed, then we need to embrace all the rest so that we can say that then all stakeholders are understanding of where we are and where we're trying to be by 2015.
That's exactly the point that I was hoping that you would draw out, and that is, tactically we might be doing all these things, but strategically, are we getting the stakeholder buy-in that we need to make it successful over the long term? I think that's what you're saying with regarding to communications and making sure that all stakeholders, from parents to children to teachers, etc., are embracing this concept. I still find that some are not aware of the college ready standards, and
That's right.
And real tools, for example, P16 councils to embrace them and affect transformation within our public schools, working with them, of course. It's not real clear how to do that yet.
The other thing too, the college access, the challenge grant does afford us the opportunity to create that marketing system. An RFP is being prepared, which you have already approved the concept, and that will be going out to identify, first of all, to create that marketing plan, and then to create the mechanisms for how we're going to deliver this message. But that's why the tie-in of any activity that we do, any project that we do, has got to fit into that message we're delivering. And so that, Evelyn Hyatt is also in the middle of that process right now, so.
Well, and as you have, are you continuing to have the regional meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Because that's a perfect avenue of really reaching in the actual communities, so that it's not just coming from this agency in Austin, Texas, but it's all the way around the state.
We also have, there are 3 regional meetings, 3 P16 council meetings planned, one in November, one in February, and one in June. There will be a continuum of what we did this past August, which really proved to be successful. So there's, the regional stuff is not ending. The curriculum regional meetings are in place. The educator quality component is beginning their meetings, and so then outreach now has become an integral part. In fact, Kristen Kramer and Priscilla are working very closely together in terms of making this connection with outreach, college readiness, etc. So,
let me ask for clarification. When you ask about are we continuing the regional meetings, you're referring to the regional meetings that we did along with Lumina and Houston Endowment, or regional meetings that Judy's?
Well, initially I was, but now I think that you're talking about the regional P16 meetings is what you're talking about. That's right.
I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah.
but nothing has ended. It's all in a continuum. We're just laying it out a little bit, much in an organized fashion, so that everything is moving together and we're coming together as a team to deliver that message.
And when you talk, I know the answer to this question, but I just want to make sure, when you talk to the regional P16s, I think it's really important to continually say to them that it's their responsibility, whatever niche they are representing, whether it's K-12 or parents or community leaders, business, higher ed, whatever, that they are responsible for getting that message to their constituencies. Example, there's a representative from Harris County Department of Ed, and any time the Greater Houston P16 Council meets, she then fans out to every single school district in Harris County. As long as we're all doing that, then everybody's getting that kind of information current. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that one of the objectives, I believe, of the P16 is to communicate. Any other comments? Yes,
I had a
Dr. Phillips.
question on whether and either it's you or Judy, but in the current phase of the vertical teams, I've forgotten, what is the timetable where we might have a document that explains what we really mean by college readiness, what's different, what's going to be different now than before? I'm finding people say, well, they're not college ready now, that's getting out. And then then they say, well, what do they need to know that they don't know? And I said, well, more like what we knew. But I don't know. But you see what I mean? I think at some point you've got to get to some level of being a little bit more specific. And I assume that that's going to happen eventually with this phase 2 of the version.
I think there are two things that are happening that will bring it all together. And one is the gap analysis that's taking place at TEA, looking at math, science, social studies, language arts, texts, and the college readiness standards to make certain that that the college readiness standards are infused in it. And I also think it's going to happen next month when you get the report from EPIC on the gap analysis that they've done on the entry-level courses. So I think, and if I may, I just wanted to go back to the regional meetings for one moment, because the beginning of those meetings is really designed for the P16 Council and the business community and civic organizations on those P16 councils, and our topic is going to be, why did we need college readiness standards, and what are they supposed to be doing for us? Why are they important for the children of Texas? So I think we're addressing your concerns, and there will be, probably, hopefully with them, when we start those meetings, there will be the document you're talking about.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll move on to agenda item 5, which is a report and discussion of the 2009 to 2011 Teacher Quality Grants Program. Elizabeth Powers, Director of Teacher Quality, will present this agenda item. Good morning. Is it still morning?
Yes, it's still
It's been an eventful morning for you all, but yes. We have a very short presentation because we have made extended presentations in both January and at the board meeting. As you know, the legislation hasn't changed, but in conjunction with discussions with the commissioner, with Dr. Laredo, with Susan Barnes, we looked at our state needs. So what we're really doing, based on research, is moving. We had done some pilots, so we're moving to all 2-year projects, because in the developmental life of a teacher, that's how long it takes to really transform teaching. The other major change is that instead of having several small projects, trying to coordinate those, we're moving to kind of helping that we can do some economies of scale and adding some larger projects in those universities that have the capacity. So there will be larger, the largest over the 2 years would be $750,000, which is about $325,000 per year. So we would expect the number of participants to be commensurate with that amount of money. So it allows them to do a little bit more extensive work. We're going to ask that they continue to focus on teams of teachers. That research continues to show that's really the major way to make changes, embed it in the professional life of the school, work with teams of teachers. And the other major change is to really help begin. We've already started over the last 2 or 3 years to try to infuse our talks with these discussions around college readiness. But now what we're doing is really making it explicit, because the TEA and the coordinating board passed college readiness standards just this year. We can say that the projects must be tied both to the TEAS and to the college readiness standards. So those are the major changes this year. Any questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is a report on the Go Centers. Chris Alvarado, Director of Outreach Initiatives, will present this agenda item along with Trey Miller from Stanford University.
You all received a preliminary report, I guess sometime in the summer, and now this is the final report, and you have the update that has been presented by Trey.
I'm going to Trey take the lead on this since he and his colleague did the actual work.
My name is Trey Miller. I'm a PhD student at Stanford in the economics department, and I'm Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about my work today. I'm talking about evaluation of growth centers that I've done with Jesse Cunha, also a colleague at Stanford.
Excuse me one second, do we have a copy?
Yes, it was just handed to you.
The PowerPoint was handed out as well.
It's kind of small.
Oh, no.
So, before I get started, there's an older version of the outline report in the agenda that you should update with this updated version. The conclusions are the same, but the numbers themselves are actually wrong in that report, so you should look at the new version. So this is the thing. Also, I have a kind of a brief presentation, so I had to cut back some things, and one thing I decided to cut back was just a general description of what a growth center is. I'm going to assume throughout that everyone here knows what growth centers are, so I hope that's a valid assumption. The red button? Red button's not good? What did that do? Hit it again? He just deleted it though. Oh, here we go. Oh, there it is. There we go. Okay, so I hit that. Yeah. Okay. So, I'll start with the research questions we had in the study. Mainly what we wanted to find was how effective growth centers have been in increasing some outcomes that we hope that they are affecting, so college application, acceptance, enrollment, persistence rates, and how those impacts varied by ethnicity and income. Particularly, we're interested in if there's a larger impact for targeted groups, the low-income students and the Hispanic population. So there's some problems that you encounter with this evaluation. There's two main ones, and I'll go through them one at a time. First is kind of obvious that growth centers were a targeted program. They're targeted at schools with historically low college participation rates and large minority, particularly Hispanic populations. That was particularly true in the first year of the program, where a lot of the schools were in the valley, so large Hispanic population. So what does this mean for the evaluation is that these students are less academically prepared for college and would be less likely to go to college than students in the rest of the state, even if students in the rest of the state had a growth center at their high school. So we have to take into account the pre-existing differences in students at growth center schools and students relative to students at schools in the rest of the state. Second, we also will see from real data that schools that receive growth centers were actually improving their college participation rates and other outcomes, college-going outcomes, before the growth center program was put into place. So we might think that this means that their application and enrollment rates would have continued to rise anyway. This was just they were doing other things to catch up with other schools anyway. So we have to take into account these pre-existing trends and outcomes to get their true impact. So I'm going to go one at a time at how we deal with these two problems, looking at some actual data on enrollment rates. So here, this is college enrollment rates for growth center schools in red, and for the rest of the state in blue. The solid line is the actual mean, and then the dotted lines represent the confidence interval. So that means with 95% probability, we know the true mean is somewhere between those two dotted lines, basically. So 2003 at the bottom, that's the year before growth centers were put into place. 2004 is the first year, and 2005 is the second year. So the red is first year growth centers, schools that received a growth center in the first year. So a common mistake that a lot of people make when they're doing an evaluation is to say, well, let's look at growth center schools and let's look at the rest of the state after the program's been put into place and compare enrollment rates, right? Well, if you do that, you see that Ghost Center schools and the rest of the state had very similar college enrollment rates. So you might conclude wrongly then that Ghost Centers haven't been doing anything. What this ignores is a pre-existing, lower college enrollment rates that were at Ghost Center schools to begin with. So if you go back to 2003, you see that Ghost Center schools before the program had 54% of students from those schools went to college, and that increased to 57%, whereas at non-Ghost Center schools it was relatively constant over time. So the solution to this problem is to look at gains in Ghost Center schools relative to a control group over time. So here you would say that the impact of the program is not nothing. It's not the difference after the program was in place. It's the difference in gains for Ghost Center schools relative to the state, which is about 3 percentage points. This is what's called differences in differences in statistical methodology, econometric. It's an econometric model. Problem 2. First, I'm going to demonstrate what we would hope things look like if we thought that Ghost Centers really were responsible for this trend that happened afterwards. You would hope maybe if Ghost Centers are the thing that's affecting college enrollment rates, that before the program went into place, Ghost Center schools were kind of going along, constant college enrollment rate. 2003, the program comes into place, and boom, they start to increase. That's what we hope. Whereas the rest of the state stays constant. Well, now let's look at actual data. That's what happened. So here, it just looks like there's a continuation of a trend of Ghost Center schools, and there was a lesser trend upward in the rest of the state. Looks like nothing might be going on. We don't really know. So what do you do to correct for pre-existing trends? The answer is to construct a proper control group that looks like that had similar trends pre-program and college-going outcomes, and also look similar in demographic makeup, course taking, and a bunch of other school-level variables that we have access to here. So when we do that, what can we do? What do we get? We get a group of schools, a control group, that had a similar trend and looks very similar to Ghost Center schools before the program went into place. And we have the same Ghost Center schools. So what's going on here? It's what looks like is happening is that the control group had a pre-existing trend that looks very similar to Ghost Center schools, but this would have leveled off. The counterfactual is they would not have been able to continue this upward trend if they hadn't been given the Ghost Center program. So when you control for these extra factors, this is what you get. So the methodology now is to use this, the differences from 2003 to 2005 in gains in college enrollment rates for the Ghost Center schools, the red line, relative to the matched control group, the blue line, which you can see is something around 3.5 percentage points increase relative to a control group. So this is not, we do some things that are a little more sophisticated in the end, but this is the gist of exactly what we're doing. We're comparing 2003 to 2005, the gains in Ghost Center schools relative to this matched control sample. So now moving on to actual results. Here in this is the impact on application rates. So in the left-hand column is the impact in the first year of the program. The second column is for students exposed to the program 2 years, so 2005. And then the rows, the first row is on the overall impact of the program on all students in the school. And then we have the impact that we estimate using this methodology on the targeted subgroups, Hispanics and economically disadvantaged students. So we see that overall, these are large impacts. So in the first year of the program, we get a 7.2 percentage point increase in college and application rates attributable to Go Centers overall. And this impact is larger on Hispanics and low-income students, as we hope, and was targeted. So 10 percentage points roughly on those groups. And also this impact increases when students are exposed to the program longer. 12 percentage points overall, 15 to 16 for the targeted subgroups. The impact on college acceptance rates is a very similar pattern, mainly because these students, when they made applications, they applied to colleges with nearly open admissions policies, so lower tier schools, and they were generally accepted. So we do some analysis also on the types of colleges that students at Go Centers send their applications to, and that's what we find. Enrollment rates, we also find a similar but somewhat muted pattern to what we see with application and acceptance rates. So when you look at the impact overall in the first year on enrollment rates, we find Go Centers increase the college enrollment rate by about 1.5 percentage points, but this is not statistically different from zero by by standard statistical things. So we can't actually say that there was a true effect in the first year, but we can say that there was a definite impact, roughly 3.5 percentage points in the first year on Hispanics and low-income students. And we do find an impact in the second year, 4 percentage points overall, 6 percentage points on Hispanics and 4 percentage points on low-income students. And finally, turning to persistence rates, we don't find any impacts in the first year, but on students exposed to the program for 2 years, we do find a significant impact on the probability of staying in college for at least a year. So roughly 4 percentage points overall, 5 percentage points on Hispanics, and 3 percentage points on low-income students. So these are all large, statistically significant, positive impacts of Go Centers that we find. So the conclusions of this, so statistically speaking, we use a differences in differences methodology with a matched control sample to estimate the causal return to Go Centers on application, acceptance, enrollment, and persistence rates in Texas. We find large positive impacts on all outcomes that we study. These impacts are larger for Hispanics and low-income students, and we also find larger impacts for students exposed to the program for 2 years. So some caveats to keep in mind when interpreting these results. One, these results apply only to Go Centers as they were implemented in the first year of the program. We're studying first year Go Centers and the students that enrolled, that were affected by those schools in the first and second year that they were in place. So there's some elements of the program that may have changed over time, things like the AmeriCorps members and things like that we actually think are improving the program, so we might find a larger impact now. There's also been changes in oversight over time and different ways of monitoring the program at the state level that might impact the results we would get if we could do this now. Also, second, these results are for the average effect over all of these schools. Some of the Go Centers didn't fully implement the program. We don't know that. We have no data on who implemented what aspects of the Go Center program. Also, some of the schools in the first year didn't come online immediately, not until the middle of the first year of the program. So this might be why we see larger impacts in the second year, because most of those schools finally came online, and all those students were exposed at least a year. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Also, we only have, at this point, short-term outcomes on college application and persistence rates. We can only go through 2 years. But we're continuing to follow these students over time, and eventually we'll be able to look at things like college completion, and eventually, in 5 years down the road, we can look at the earnings impact using data from the Texas Workforce Commission. So that's things we can do in the future. Finally, we have no statistical evidence at this point on what parts of the Go Center program are responsible for this large impact. All we know is whether a school received a Go Center, and we don't know what parts of the program they implemented, and we don't know. We have no data on that at this point. But what we are doing at this point is conducting a survey of high school counselors and trying to elicit the kind of information we need to answer some of those questions and find out, whether it's the peer-to-peer persuasion aspect of Go Centers or the informational component, or what is responsible and to what extent they are, all components are necessary for the program to get these large impacts that we find. That's all I have for my presentation.
This is excellent information, and I'm going to allow my colleagues to ask questions first. So any questions or comments?
Are we going to take it to that next level when we look at for what
I'm working. Jesse and I are working on that at this time. We're doing the statewide survey of high school counselors and trying to find. We don't know if they'll actually know what was in place in 2004, but hopefully we'll be able to get at least some sense of what parts of the program that these schools implemented, and particularly also what they're doing now. Right.
Question, and that is, it did change a little bit.
Sure.
What's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on today, and how are we going to?
I'll say this, it's difficult because the data collection has not been great on what has been done at different schools over time. So it's all going to be retrospectively asking what they were doing, and to what extent we trust that information that we can get on what was going on 3 years ago at a Go Center is difficult. And now the program is so widespread that it's hard to construct a control group of a school that's similar to a Go Center school that doesn't have the program or some similar thing. So we're trying. That's the best I can say. And hopefully that retrospective information will help.
We didn't collect any data from the actual participants.
No, so this is the overall impact of having a Go Center in your school. So the impact is going to be larger on the students that actually went to the Go Center. We don't know who went. All we know is whether they were at a high school that had a Go Center.
I guess that's kind of the shame of it, because we don't know what they felt was the important part of the Go Center.
Sure.
And how their decisions were,
Sure.
that would be.
I think that there's a process in place now, right, for the some of the Go Centers to listen. Chris knows about this.
Since we've transitioned the oversight of the Go Centers to local institutions of higher education, they don't face some of the issues that we face with regard to FERPA. Some of the more successful Go Centers in the state actually have a really strong relationship with their local institution of higher education, and they're able not only to track those individual students into their particular institution, but they're able to track them into higher ed in general and say, you didn't come to University X or College X, you went to this other college in the state or out of state. They actually have actual files on individual students that go into the Go Center, they sign in, and they have a form that says, I've completed my FAFSA, I've completed my Common Application, I've completed the essays for the Common App, and they have steps marked off that they really check the students individually, and it is one-on-one assistance, and it is kind of the model we try to replicate with our AmeriCorps program and our VISTA program. And of course, that's the Gates funded project there in Houston too. So we've taken kind of the bits and pieces we know are successful for institutions that have strong partnerships with these high school Go Centers, and really tried to replicate that across the state in those Go Centers that we're still involved in directly. And again, we're trying to take a step back and let the institutions and the school districts work on this. And we provided that information to them as well, so they know how to make this thing work.
I mean, what would be ideal is if we could link that data into the state database so we could then monitor outcomes over time. But that's difficult with FERPA issues.
Well, if students are signing that much paperwork, they could sign a release to allow that to happen. That's all they have to do. So if they're going through that, Chris, we just need to pursue that. I think Robin's acknowledging.
Thank you.
Come on up. For the Houston Go Centers the Gates program, we have a contract at Texas A&M University, and they are going to be tracking the students and their contact in the programs. They're signing a consent form so that we can track them, so that we know where they go to college and persistence, and we can look at all of that. So that will be possible. That's just getting started, however. So it'll be a little while before we have that data.
The other issue is if you're doing it with a whole school district or a whole school, it's very difficult to get that permission. But when you have more targeted programs, you can initiate something to allow the tracking of those students.
Right. We have, and as Trey was saying, we have controlled schools that we've selected in Houston. So we'll be tracking both the students at the controlled schools and the students at the Go Center schools.
Sure.
Well, it's really a comment. First of all, it's important to have these kinds of data because as we try to expand our programs, it's very critical for us to go to potential funders with data to show that there is an impact. So this study is very useful in that regard. The other comment is that I was struck by a finding that's a staple of the literature on outreach efforts, and that is that one of the critical elements, if not the most critical element, is persistence. And when you're working particularly with low income and disadvantaged students, you have to hit them over and over and over and over again with the same message before it takes hold. And that the data showed, for example, that college nights that high schools they'll have one night a year to remind kids about the benefits of going to college. The data showed that those kinds of events really have no impact. But a Go Center that's on a campus and is regularly working with a cohort of kids, and over a period of 1 year, 2 years, is communicating the same message about the value of going to college and the financial aid that's available for students. The data are unmistakable on that point. The persistence is a critical component of success.
I think that's right. And it's also borne out in a way in the results. I don't know, it's probably not up anymore, but the results for persistence, we had a lower, it was positive impact, but it was much lower for economically disadvantaged students, relative in particular to the college enrollment rate. So a lot of those students, once they've lost this kind of Go Center contact, might be more likely to drop out and not persist. So it kind of argues for pushing for something continued in college with these lower income
There's
students.
positive data that indicates that type of contact in college will make a difference in terms of persistence. So you're exactly right.
Sure. And that's why we modeled the collegiate G-Force after that type of research, and realizing that several of the students that we worked with in the Go Centers in the first couple of years were actually matriculating in higher ed and becoming those same advocates at the college level that they were in high school doing peer-to-peer. We're now going back to those same high schools doing the collegiate G-Force outreach. And one of the strongest ones we had just last year graduated, and she was actually the president of their G-Force at the college level after being a G-Force member in high school. So.
We're also doing some analysis on the collegiate G-Force linkages between local high schools and the local college, trying to see does it increase persistence rates at those colleges and enrollment rates at the matched college. So we're looking at this as well. So,
being tracked and followed through their college career, it would be nice to get feedback from those participants that went through the program to tell us what they felt were the strong suits of the Go Centers. That's where we're really trying to get.
And we do have a piece in the work study mentorship program as part of the evaluation. They submit to us a qualitative piece that provides their perspective, not only individually how it affected them as the mentor, but also what they felt when they went to the schools and working with these students that are just a few years removed from themselves and maybe seeing some of the same classes or some of the same schools that they were in. We haven't been able to do that with the high school students as much, but we are able to do that with the college students.
Yeah, thanks to the staff for doing this. We asked for it and we got it. It's very useful.
Trey has done a number of projects for us, and they've all been excellent, and we're trying to see if we can help bring them back to Texas permanently.
I appreciate that.
I know when I got the first one on my email some time ago, I'm reading and I'm going, yes, somebody wrote about the questions we had. Just one question, I'm sorry that I was out of the room. You may have already addressed this, but I'm assuming this study took place before any of the schools had a college connection program?
It was, so only I think at the time, only Austin ISD had or Austin Community College District had that. So that's the only one in 2003, 2004. I've also done some analysis of the College Connection program and found similar results. So
yeah, I noticed the similarity of the results. That's what made me wonder. We had it's been easy to follow the first programs because there was 1 year one and then just two.
Sure.
And it was about the same 30%.
The question that just was asked is really critical. Dave and I just talked about this. We ought to seek to develop a very strong symbiotic relationship between College Connection and Go Centers.
I think it makes
College Connection is the message, and the Go Center is the reinforcer of the message.
We've actually done that in San Antonio with our AmeriCorps members and our Vista members, and we're trying to align the two programs and make sure that they complement each other well. And last year was really the first year that we really connected the two.
Yeah.
This may not be the place to mention this, but it relates, so I'll just throw it out. I heard some people talking about the advantages of having the PSAT. If the PSAT is required at an earlier grade, then there's an advantage to having that test on Saturday, because then you can get the parents to come. And in our little community, we had it on Saturday. The parent buses went out, picked up everybody, picked up the parents. Lunch was served. Local accountants came and helped people fill out their tax forms and their applications. And it could be a big old, that's something we might want to see if we could work into a Go Center program.
It's an interesting idea.
We got a lot of help. If they had too many accountants, you can imagine
And I know we have, for the College Connection program, we have paid for testing as part of that. And I know in the Gates funded project there in Houston, we're actually paying for the Plan and Explore to take place as well in 8th and 9th grade.
Yeah, but most of the administrators want to get that test on school day because they want a high participation rate, so you have to work through all the different things.
Ms. Povich.
Yes, I had a question and a quick comment. If I'm reading this correctly, there is a very large difference between the application rates and the enrollment rates?
Yes.
Okay. Are we or should we be tracking the reasons for those differences?
We're not at this time, as far as I'm aware. I'm using the databases we have here that are on college enrollment and acceptance, and I didn't collect any data other than what I'm collecting, what Jesse and I are collecting now from college counselors, or high school counselors. But that's definitely that's a big
I guess
question.
the question is, should we?
Well, in fact, David and I were also talking about we needed to complement Trey's quantitative work with qualitative work, which might include focus groups and interviews and so forth.
Yeah, one note on that is that some of you may know that we only have applicant data for universities. We don't have applicant data for community colleges. And I don't know, I assume that you said probably some people would have multiple applications and control for that in what you did.
Well, we actually also run some analysis on the number of applications submitted that increased by about 0.1 per student on average.
One interesting thing in Texas is most students who apply to Texas universities really only apply to one institution, which is sort of
something like 70% in our database applied to one, and 96% applied to 3 or less.
Yeah.
So not many, I think, multiple applications.
I wonder if that's an effective College Connection.
It could be.
Did you look
This is early on too. This is before College Connection. So.
Following up on the same question, because it had several things embedded in, I think. Did you check to see if, while they didn't enroll in the university to which they applied if they enrolled in a community college?
It's the college enrollment variable there is defined as enrolling in any college in Texas 2-year or 4 years.
So we'll pick them up, because we do know that we have about 2,000 students typically who apply to a university but subsequently enroll in a community college instead.
Interestingly, though, the impact of Go Centers was only on enrolling in 4-year schools. We found no impact on enrolling in 2-year schools at all, like 4-year schools, which, I mean, makes sense because the emphasis is on going through the college application process, and you only apply to 4-year schools in Texas, so it makes some sense in that.
Well, and then my quick comment is on the last page, you ask, are GO centers the most cost-effective way to increase higher education in Texas? I hope that your data will ultimately show an enthusiastic yes, because these programs do seem to be working, especially for Hispanic and disadvantaged students.
Definitely, they're definitely working. So.
When you said that you were really looking kind of at the program itself and not really being able to gather data from if it's a full-time college counselor there all the time, how many times they see the students, how many students are seeing, what do you see as the next steps? And also, as we know, I guess it's a two-part question, as we know, there are college Go centers that aren't ours that, you know, throughout all of Austin ISD through a grant, throughout Houston ISD with their
College access coordinators.
their money that they got from the state. What's it called? High school allotment, yeah. Those aren't Go centers that you're necessarily looking at. So how can we create kind of a template or a model and share that information for all of the Go centers that aren't official Go centers of ours?
I mean, that's difficult, right? I mean, this is, you have to somehow solicit that information through some kind of survey to high school counselors like we're doing. And that's what we're trying to do with this. We're trying to get this retrospectively as well, so asking about what they were doing 2, 3, 4 years ago. So hopefully the survey that we're doing will also be helpful to the state for this purpose.
Yeah, we want to know that, you know, you don't just put up a banner and have a classroom with a computer,
That's what we're
and that all of a sudden college going rates go up. There's got to be something.
And we don't really believe that's...
Yeah, if it were that easy. And also, do you have any kind of data to suggest that a smaller high school in a smaller district, like there are bound to be high schools that have Go centers that maybe have, you know, 500 kids as opposed to 3,000 kids, that there's that obviously there's more hits of meeting those students and intervening and supporting them. Is there data to show that the smaller schools are doing better?
We could do that. We haven't done that yet. It's an interesting idea. I think.
Yeah.
Interesting. Where the
Prioritize where we have the Go's, you know.
in the first year, we made sure that the first group that we're looking at, which was the first 48 or so Go centers, was that they were represented. They represented not only the urban school districts, suburban school districts, but also the rural school districts. So we made sure that we hit Hidalgo High School, as well as the Brownsville High Schools, as well as the some of the schools in the Metroplex and in the big metropolitan areas, and we're geographically spread out. Now, as Trey can attest to, over the next couple of years, they just started popping up everywhere, and we went from an initial test group of 41 to about 75 after the first year, and then over 150 the next year, and then the numbers have been about 200, 250 since then that we've been able to track. So there are some, of course, that are not reporting to us because they were set up in El Paso and we didn't have a regional coordinator or a field specialist in El Paso anymore, but yet they still maintained. So again, that's why we felt it was important to transition the oversight and responsibility and ask the institutions of higher ed to partner with their local school districts and facilitate that partnership and carry the project on.
I think the question was in regard to whether you can make some distinctions between the size and type of high school and the effectiveness.
No, we definitely could. We can run that. It would be.
It reminds me, based on what the commissioner said about those college nights, and if you've got a high school with maybe 400 seniors, and if 50 of them come, and there's all these college representatives there, and they might or might not talk to 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 of them, it's kind of ambiguous as to the impact. But with what you're doing, you can pretty much tell how many times a college advisor is seeing these students and what they're doing. Are they helping them with financial aid forms? Are they helping them with their essays? Are they helping them with their common applications? What are the indicators? And it seems like that would be the next step. Then we need to find an avenue somehow to all of the hundreds probably of Go Centers that aren't our Go Centers, and figure out how to impact them, whether they're our Go Centers or not. If we have some magic formula, that the banner needs to be red, white, and blue instead of, a different color, then, that's what we need to tell them.
Should communicate, for sure. Yeah.
I think the question, though, that Elaine was getting at that's really important for us to know in terms of fundraising, because I'm convinced that we will have a very effective fundraising campaign for this in the near future, is things like how many counselors do we need in a school of a certain size to be effective? Because if we want to raise money, multiple money to get the Go Centers to be as effective as they can be, we need to know they don't just need one counselor. You can't have this many students. They need this many counselors. And things like that, keep that in the back of your mind.
Sure.
As Raymond said, we want to use this as a tool to go out and get the funds to support.
No, I think that's the right idea, and I'll try in the future to push for questions like this.
I think our general feeling is this is extremely powerful, because this is a true indicator of the impact of Go Centers, and just that itty bit of intervention, no matter how big or small, is obviously making an impact, and that's important. Other comments?
I'd just like to let you know that Trey's also working on a value-added study for us to look at the contribution individual colleges and universities really make to the performance of students once they get there, given different backgrounds, and so we look forward to getting that later this fall.
Yeah, Jesse and I plan to have that to you sometime next week, so we're completing it now.
I think we really want you in Texas. I think that's what we're trying to tell you.
Yeah, it is in Texas. He went to UT.
And he actually started with us, 2 years ago, working in the summer. We talked with Mr. Kanishek at Stanford, and turned out he had a good student, so we actually hired him that very summer and spent the summer, and we've been trying to hang on to him ever since.
I've enjoyed working with everyone here, so it's been a great experience, and good place to do my dissertation and do some consulting projects here and then. So this has been a great experience.
Well, next time you'll put him under contract or something, just say the caveat is that he has to come back to Texas.
Well, he has some other reasons to come back to Texas.
We better move on after that.
Yeah. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Good work, Jesse.
Okay, agenda item 7, presentation on Metametrics, Lexile Framework, scores for college university textbooks. Evelyn Hyatt, Senior Director of College Readiness Initiatives, will present this agenda item. And what do we need to do as far as
As this committee knows, over the past several years, we've been trying to do some studies to determine college readiness, to see what we can do to make certain that students are successful when they go into their entry-level courses. One of the things we've stressed a great deal is how well students are reading, what they're reading, and how sophisticated their reading skills are. One of the things we started last year is we contracted with a group called Metametrics that does the Lexile, and Dr. Smith is going to explain that to you, to look at the academic entry-level courses, the textbooks that were used to determine their reading level, so we could get a comparison as to the reading level of students coming through the Texas school system and graduating, and the textbooks they were going to encounter when they first arrived. This year we expanded our study and asked Metametrics to look at some of the tech prep courses. We selected 11 courses from the tech prep continuum so that they could review those textbooks as well. They looked at both community colleges and, in the case of the academic books, both the community colleges and the four-year institutions. The report is ready, and Malbert Smith, who is the president of Metametrics, and Heather Coons, who I believe did most of the research on this report, are going to present the findings, and I think you're going to find it quite interesting.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you for allowing us to be here today, and let me be the first to wish you a good afternoon. I've heard a lot of good mornings this morning, but I think now technically it's gone into the afternoon. What I'd like to do is to really break this into four pieces. We'll describe who we are and what we do, and then I want to describe the study we did, the results, and the implications of that, and then next steps and questions if we have time for that. Metametrics is a psychometric research firm. We're headquartered down in the Research Triangle Park of North Carolina. I was introduced at one of the conferences recently. I was speaking, and they introduced me as a psychomagician. We're not psychomagicians, we're psychometricians. There's a difference. Sometimes it's subtle, but there's a difference. That's
you have a magic wand?
That's right. But we're a psychometric firm, and we've focused on the measurement of reading, writing, and math. And the first scale that we developed was the Lexile framework for reading, and then we developed the Quantile framework for mathematics, and we've just launched a new scale for writing called the Lexile framework for writing scale. We were funded by the National Institute of Health for about 12 years in terms of the research underneath this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Lexile framework is. I'm going to just give you a cursory. A lot of you know what the Lexile framework is, but in case you don't, I wanted to give you a little thumbnails, kind of Cliff Notes 101, so you would know what that is, because it really impacts the study we did. Let me also, I think the report has been passed to you as well as the PowerPoint. We also sent you a package of collateral material that might go into more detail on some things if you have an interest in it. Some of the papers in there might, if you're having trouble sleeping at night, might help induce narcolepsy, but they're in there for your pleasure, and you can read them at your pleasure. Basically, you can think about the Lexile framework, and let me pause also a moment. We've really enjoyed working with your staff. I think you guys are really on the cutting edge. We work in 20 states directly, either as a subcontractor or a direct contractor with their testing program, especially under the NCLB. And I can honestly say there are only 3 states that I think are really trying and making great progress in bridging this, moving from this paradigm from K-12 to P-16. I think some of the work you were doing, and it's going to be reflected in this paper that you will read, and I'll give you a synopsis of it, but you're really doing a great job. I think that there's a real interest now, not only in what is college ready, how well do you have to read to be college ready? There's also how well do you need to read to be career ready? And, historically, people have thought that if you were going into a blue-collar job, the literacy demands were less. That is not the case, and we'll show you some data on that as well. But we really have to have rigorous reading and the rigorous reading requirements throughout the curriculum and for the post-secondary options that students will experience. So basically, what is the Lexile framework? You can think about it from 2 perspectives. One perspective is a measure of readability. How difficult is something to read? We really look at 2 features of text. We look at the semantic load and the syntactic load. And this is what is classically called a readability formula. So readability formula, some of you maybe in graduate school had to use one of the readability formulas, but typically the lower the score on any readability index, the easier it is to read. And you can think about Lexiles from low to high, and things like Clifford's book, Clifford will come in around 300 Lexiles. Something like Samuelson's book of economics, you just had an economist speak to you, that will come in about 1,700 Lexiles. So economists have to be good readers.
Does Fagan's weight come in at?
I don't know, but we'll look it up for you.
Look it up for you.
But so you can see that there's a variety of ways that you can measure text. In the Lexile framework, we've now measured over 100,000 books, over 100 million articles, websites have been measured, so it's very ubiquitous in terms of a measure of readability out in terms of the P-16 space, in terms of people getting measures off that. The second way So if you bifurcate, on one side is a readability measure. On the second way, and this is what was really unique in terms of the grants that we received from the federal government, we can also put the reader on that same scale. So just like we can order books from easy to hard, we can also put readers, that is students, on that same scale and give them a Lexile measure. And the beauty there of this is that once you know the Lexile measure of the student, then you can match them to instructional resources. And that is true throughout the developmental lifespan of a student. That is, we know that good instructional design, you want to target the difficulty of a task with the ability of the student, wherever that ability is. And so we have those two components. The three components here that I'll just briefly share with you. The Lexile Analyzer is how we measure text. We measured, for you, a number of books, but we actually take the book and we measure the entire book. We have the world's largest corpus of words. The English language is the most democratic and robust of all languages. There are more words in the English language than any other language. I think the last count that I saw was around 650,000 words in our language. But we have the frequencies of those words in our language. For example, if you were reading a book that had the word puzzle in it, puzzle appears very frequently in our language. If I take out the word puzzle and insert the word paradox, that's less frequently appearing, so it's a harder sentence to read. If I take out paradox and insert enigma, that's even less frequently appearing. And if I take out enigma and put in conundrum, that's even less frequently appearing. So the degree to which books have words like conundrum in them versus puzzle, it becomes a heavier reading load. And so we've measured all those books. The second, I mentioned the technology for the reader. What we do is we don't have our own test. Metametrics did not create the Lexile test. What we adopted to do was to what psychometricians call equating or linking, but we linked the existing test in the marketplace to the Lexile scale so that they could report out Lexiles, and that we actually go out into the field, do a linking study, write that study up, and you can think about it much like going from Fahrenheit to Celsius. If you know what the temperature is in Fahrenheit, you can re-express it in Celsius. We do that with all the major test publishers. In your particular state, Texas, your TAKS, Texas Assessment of Knowledge and Skills, is linked to the Lexile and Quantile scale. I think do we have a picture of that up there? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, so every student in Texas that takes the TAKS, and you can't see it from here, but in your PowerPoint you might can see it. Actually, the Lexile measure and the Quantile measure goes home to the student and to the parents. So in Texas, every student here is getting a Lexile measure. Currently, 20 states report out Lexiles off their NCLB assessment. About 5 states report out Quantiles, which is the math construct that's built upon the same premise. That is, we want to match ability with difficulty of task. And so that's how we get it here in this particular state. Okay, what did we do in terms of your study? Let me talk about that briefly. And Abby did a great job of a summary. The interest was, what are the reading demands in the four-year universities, the technical colleges, the community colleges? How well do you have to read? What's the Lexile? What's the literacy level of those courses? And so what we did with the help of folks here, we sampled and took the survey, typically the courses that were taken in the introductory years and the survey courses. So these weren't the advanced courses, these weren't the majors, these are the typical most popular courses you would take in the four-year universities, in the community colleges, and the technical colleges. We sampled approximately 150 textbooks and we measured them, just like I talked about earlier. We measured those books to see how difficult they were in Lexiles. And I'm going to show you a graph here where we put it all together. This is kind of an interesting graph, and it's kind of busy, but let me break it down for you. The y-axis is the Lexile, the vertical axis is the Lexile measures. And then you can look, the 4 box and whisker graphs there. There's the community technical college, the first box. The community college is the second box. And then four-year university is the third box. And then the summary is in the fourth box. This is referred to as a box and whiskers chart. And what we've done is put the level of the books in terms of where they came out. And you can see the hash mark in the middle of the box is the median, where 50% of the books fall. And so you can look across there at the community college, technical college, and four-year universities. You can also see there's some range. You can see that the university, the textbooks that we sampled there actually go up higher. The means are not that far apart, but there are some books at the very higher end, up there at the maximum 75th percentile. and you can see that it's at the lower range, it's a little bit higher. But then what we did is, because the tax reports out on Lexile, we were able to put the person on the same scale. And so if you look at the Met Standard, that comes in about 1,015 Lexiles. And if you look at the Thegby cut point, it's 1,170. And you look at the commended, it's 1,490. Now, what does this tell us? Well, it tells us a couple of things. Number one, if you look at the Met Standard, only about 5% of the books are below the Met Standard. That is, if a student just hit the Met Standard, that was his test score, about 95% of the books that he would be exposed to in any of these environments would be above where he's currently reading. And I'm going to show you a chart on this in just a minute where that we'll have the comprehension. Yes?
Is that Met Standard on the top set?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What is the TECB standard? Is that 2,200 on the tax test? Okay, that's what Coordinating Board has labeled? Yeah. These are all using the tax scores. It would be 2,100 for standard, 2,200 for THECB, although you said Thegby, and I like that. And then the commended level is 2,400 on the tax.
To give you some indication of, just to give you a normative perspective, the Met Standard, about 90% of the students in Texas achieve that standard. They meet that standard. When you get to the Thegby or THECB cut point, I'm sorry.
We've been called worse.
Okay. About 70% of the Texas students hit that mark. If you go up to the commended cut point, only about 20% of the Texas students hit that point. Now, I'm giving you the cut points. Obviously, between these cut points, there are a lot of students. So we're just looking at the baseline cut point. But what it shows here is that, again, at the Thegby cut point, I'm sorry, it's about 30% of the books fall below that point. And if you're at the commended, if a student scores commended, he or she is not going to have trouble reading anything at any university, any college, anywhere in technical school. But if you fall below those points, you could have a struggle. And I think it's borne out. If you look nationally at the percent of students in freshman year that have to go into some sort of remedial instruction for either reading, writing, or math, this is consistent with that same picture that you'll see. If you flip to the next chart, I wanted to break down the comprehension. We're going to look at this three different ways. First, the first slice of this is looking at four-year universities. And you can look and you can see the minimum book there that we measured was 1,050, and we had a book up as high as 1,530 Lexiles. If you were a student that just met in the shaded area, what we did here with the shaded was anything shaded was you would have a comprehension rate less than 75%. So for those students, again, at the commended, if they encountered the most difficult book that we sampled, their comprehension would be around 72%. Down to, at the minimum, they would have a comprehension, if you go all the way over to the right bottom corner, 96%. Conversely, if a student just met the standard and was going to a four-year university and happened to get the most difficult book, his comprehension is going to break down to about 23%. And you can see how it goes from 23% up to 72% for that Met Standard. So as the books get easier, they're going to have an easier time comprehending it. As the books get more difficult, they would have a more difficult time. Now, you can also, if you just look at the 1530 cut point, the standard 23%, then it goes to the 38% and the 72%. Obviously, there's students all between there. So you could have a student that didn't quite make, let's say, commended, who would look more like a commended student if he was right at the cut point, and his comprehension would be around 71%. So it's not everybody in that bucket. It's right at the cut points is what we were trying to convey to you. The next slice is actually the community colleges. And again, we use the same analysis. What would be the comprehension rate enjoyed by students at various cut points? And if you can see there, the maximum in the community college was a textbook at 1450, and one went down as low as 840. And you can see the associated comprehension rate. So again, students, if they were in that Met Standard and they're at the low end of that, they're going to really struggle with more difficult books. And we'll talk a little bit about some things that can help in terms of a bridge. But I think this can kind of be a warning signal as students come in to what to expect. We find that a lot of students, they're not prepared when they get into the post-secondary options to read at the levels that's being demanded. I think I heard earlier today you're in law school. Law school is one of the most rigorous reading demands. Not only do you have to read a lot of difficult content, but you have to read a lot of it. So reading speed and comprehension, all those things are very important. And having had a daughter in law school, I know that one of the things that separates successful law school students from others is reading, being able to read and comprehend and read the volume that's required. So you can see here that not all students that graduate, depending on where they are, could experience the same comprehension rate, that we have to be sensitive to that. And then the last slice of this is the community technical colleges, and you can see the range there was the highest, the most demanding book that we measured was 1,360, and the least demanding was 920. And you can see the distribution there. And again, you can see the shaded area. That is, if a student just met standard, it'd be 39%. Moving up to the next cut point would be 56% they would enjoy. And those above, you see, would be from 84 to 97%. In general, we find that students that, when their comprehension breaks down less than 75%, they're going to really struggle. And you have to have additional support, different scaffolding, and it's a real struggle. And especially when you get down below 50%, it's going to be a real challenge. So what are some of the implications of this? One is, as you map out, and as you try to map out what is the reading demands across the P16 environment, not just a K-12 perspective, being able to map out what are your reading demands, what are you expecting students to read in the post-secondary options that you provide, what are the demands? I think this is the kind of study that can help annotate that and document with an objective standard what the reading requirements are. We can do the same kind of analysis for writing and math if you have interest in it, because we have those scales, and Texas already reports out on the quantile scale. So we could also do a kind of what are the math demands in the post-secondary world, and are our students that are exiting prepared for those demands. Second point is providing support to students entering post-secondary programs, and under here it's targeted supplemental text. A number of students and the developmental students that I've worked with, one of the nice features of the Lexile framework is that if you're in a course, let's assume you're taking a biology class, a biology textbook, and the biology text written at 1,200 Lexiles. Let's assume that if you're a 900 Lexile reader, your comprehension is going to break down very tremendously. And let's assume for a moment the topic is on photosynthesis. The professor's lecturing on photosynthesis. Many students, what they'll do is go to the library, and if you look at all these content aggregators, NetTracker, Alexander, EBSCO, at one time the state of Texas actually had a license to all the EBSCO for all your public libraries. I'm not sure if that's still the case or not. But EBSCO has actually Lexiled every article in its database, so 100 million articles. So now I go in, I'm a 900 Lexile reader, I can go to the library, type in photosynthesis, and articles will appear that are between 900 and 1,000 on photosynthesis. So now I'm reading the content, but with accessible text. We know two things. One is the best way to get content is through reading. Number two, we know the only way you improve your reading is to read more. And so often our students, when they're so far behind and the gap is so huge, what they do is just give up. This is a tool that teachers across the country use quite effectively. Or I think you're from Houston. I've been here since 9 this morning, so I was picking up a little bit of information on all of you. But I know down at HISD, Abe Sabadra, they use the Lexile framework, and they use Jim Hundemer in his library has everything Lexile, so that every student can come in and have a challenge and something they're interested in, as opposed to just saying, well, try this book on. So HISD has been a big proponent of using Lexiles throughout the curriculum and reading across the content categories. So these are just some of the...
Real quick question on that, but as you match the student with their prospective Lexile content material, and you said it increased, to increase you have to read more. Do you read more at your Lexiles, or do you begin increasing the information that they're reading in terms of their Lexile scores for them to get better? Anybody understand what I was asking? Yeah.
Does more reading improve your reading, or I'm not sure.
Does more reading of the Lexile score that you're good at help you, or should you start at what you're good at, like the 900, and the teacher or instructor increases it to 1,000, increases it to 1,200, that's what happens.
Yeah, I think we never want to say you're a 900 Lexile reader and that's where you stay, because the point is to challenge and to keep them moving, and that's been one of the really nice features, is that so many students, this becomes their individual metric. They can kind of modulate, and they can govern the pace and the instructional supporting documents that help them in their educational career. I was reading an article just the other day where some economists are predicting that most adults will go through and change occupations at least 7 times. Well, if you're going to change 7 times, our community colleges and those kinds of organizations are going to be so critical to retraining. And retraining really is reading, being able to read content in different topics. And so that targeted reading is so important. And we're seeing that students that get targeted can continue to grow and actually get the content as well. The third just implication I wanted to just briefly mention to you is that it would be helpful as you think through this, you might want to consider actually getting Lexile measures on your students. I heard that you're doing a value-added study of the students and cohorts that come in. One of the things you could look at is, does reading improve over time? And it does. Unfortunately, as we get older, not many things improve, but reading is one that can improve, which gives us all, at least at 55, I'm more encouraged by that. Our vocabulary can continue to grow. Those things can grow, whereas our reaction time, I don't run the 100, I don't even walk the 100 anymore. So those kind of things don't improve with age, but reading is something that fundamentally we can improve, and there's a lot of, at least geriatric research on the importance of reading in terms of warding off some of the diseases that we suffer with age. So you might consider that. There's some tools out there. The TABE now has been linked to the Lexile framework. We also have had discussions with ACT and the College Board about the SAT reporting out Lexiles, and so we're hoping that those measures will eventually, just like the other test publishers have linked, we'll start doing that as well. And then I'm sorry.
Were you here this morning when we had public testimony?
Yes.
One of the comments that was made recurrently was that we don't have any standards or any evaluation processes for dual credit courses, and actually we're aware of that, and I didn't comment very much about this, but we are going to establish some kind of system, some process for evaluating dual credit courses and making sure that they have the appropriate levels of rigor. But it occurs to me that one of the things we can do is we can make sure that the materials that are used in dual credit courses actually reflect the same Lexile scores that are present in community college courses that are offered in the regular format. The other thing that occurs to me is you have Lexile scores, or whatever the other term, or quantile scores, in 3 areas of developmental education. And we know that one of the problems that we have in offering effective developmental education programs is that our diagnostic tools, at least the ones that are being used like Accuplacer, do not give you the nuanced kind of information that you really need to design more effective developmental ed programs that we currently have. And it occurs to me that we should talk to you about helping us restructure our developmental education programs in Texas.
We would
we will be in touch. We have a meeting in about a month, and we'll contact you to find out if you'd be interested in being a representative.
Okay, thank you. I think most of the instruments are pretty blunt, and to have more precision and connect it to the text demands, it's actionable then. We see that with the tax scores that go home to parents. They take action on it. They can do something with it. They can go to the library during the summer, get their kids reading during the summer. So that's been a big piece of it. That's a good segue to my 4th point, which is the additional research studies. We gave you a copy in your package of a study called Aligning the Journey with the Destination. This was a study we did for the National Assessment Governing Board. They were concerned with what are the literacy demands in the military, the workplace, citizenship. How well do you have to read to be a citizen? What are the reading requirements? How well do you have to read to go to community college and college? And one of the things that we did is we actually looked at the 11th and 12th grade. We looked at textbooks, and what we found was a gap. That is, what we're requiring in the higher ed is at a higher level than many of the students are taking in the high school 11th and 12th grade. So again, I see you guys work with building a bridge. You know, you're taking the students that come from K-12, and if the bridge doesn't connect with this bridge, we got a gap. And I think these are the kind of tools that can help you think through, you know, this is a metric that can help. It doesn't solve any of the problems, but it does give you a metric that gives you clarity on where the gaps are and how much are the gaps and how big are the gaps. This is something that we did for North Carolina, and I know it's hard to read, but basically what we did, North Carolina, just like the tax reports out Lexals, and we took, there were approximately 70,000 students that we had complete data for. That is, they had not missed a single test. We had much more data, but some of the data was for, you know, students may have moved in and out of the district. So these are for the cohort that had every year a North Carolina integrated test. And we built this growth trajectory, and this is based on 70,000 students. And then we extrapolated and said, where will they exit? And you could have the same, every student in Texas could have a growth trajectory, just like you go to the pediatrician and get growth norms, and you could have growth norms for every student in Texas and watch them as they mature, and you could watch and see, am I on a growth trajectory that's going to get me to the University of Texas at Austin? Am I on, and because I'm not so concerned often with where a student is right now, but what kind of growth trajectory are on, and can we change their slope? And that's the big thing that I would encourage you to think about, is these kind of growth models that you could have in looking at students. And that's the graph from it. You can see down at the bottom, the high school text collection, you can see was much lower than the workplace. We did citizenship, we defined just for being able to read newspapers, figuring that's where adults communicate. Kind of there's a myth that newspapers are written at the 5th grade level. They're actually written from about 1,200 to 1,400 Lexals. We did 38 newspapers. We're actually doing an international study now of newspapers that we're looking at. But being able to read a newspaper we thought was important for citizenship. Being able to read your driver's license, voter registration, things like that. Reading jury instructions. We interviewed some people and thought that was pretty important. So
we have our constitutional amendments here. Read those constitutional amendments.
So the workplace, then the community college. This was a sample we did nationally. It wasn't the Texas sample, and then the university, and you can see the different cut points there. But
what's kind of confusing is it looks like from these graphs over here, if you take a look at, for example, standard, what the coordinating board is saying is readiness on those tax tests, and amended. If you get amended, you can read the majority of what's required. Or, and when we look back over here, it seems like we're not doing good enough. So how do those reconcile?
So which the commended?
Well, at first I was thinking, okay, so meeting the standards, it's not really good enough for four-year institutions or community college, but if you do commended, you should be able to, no problem, reading anything in college by this chart here.
Right.
But then when we go over here, it's citizen, blah, blah, blah. It looks like we're having difficulties.
Things on the bottom school.
You know what I'm saying?
The last graph you're looking at is from a national study we did. This one's, so it's a little bit different data that you have.
Is Texas doing better or worse than the national scores?
In terms of not much difference in terms of the reading demands in the post-secondary world. In terms of where each state sets their cut scores, that's a different question. I'm not prepared to answer that today.
Yeah, the study with this chart here on the back preceded the Texas study, and it uses a set of materials that is focused on humanities and social sciences that we gathered from Questia. The description of where all this data came from is in a report that's in your packet. The Texas study it focuses on the demands of the university materials in Texas. and a sampling of Texas. So the sampling of the textbooks that went into the different studies is different.
Ms. Mendoza, I think one of the things too that you might be looking at is whether or not that the current THECB tax standard is appropriate. We are doing a test analysis study on all the tests that are currently used for the Texas Success Initiative to see how they align with the college readiness standards. So this is what it is right now.
It's really a minimal standard. It's
not even minimal.
Yeah, it is.
Well, if you,
But this kind of pretty much shines the light on why students passing tax are not college ready.
right. If you look at,
If you're at a commended level, then the chances of your success are increasingly better. In fact, that's what is necessary. So I guess, short of when we actually implement end-of-year exams, the tax should really be measured for college success on a commended level.
And actually, if you want to be brutally frank about this, even the commended level, one would hope that if you take the most rigorous curriculum that's available in a high school, that your Lexile score would be at least in the 90% range, and it's not. It's in 72%. Yeah, for your ability to deal with the most difficult college tests.
And I was going to ask, when you looked at the college text, was it a mixture of both technical as well as liberal arts, business, and did we have...
You have the list in the back of the report, and it is divided out by four-year institutions, community colleges, and the technical institutions. So you can see all of the... It's one, and it's the last 3 or 4 pages. It's got the listing of the courses.
An example for four-year institutions and community colleges focused on courses that most or all students would be expected to take on entry. So we did some surveys and looked at.
You said entry level, that's right. Okay.
First couple of years.
For persistence, then, that's a different issue. So these data really don't point to persistence in terms of the skill set, reading, comprehension necessary for graduation. Is that correct?
Yes.
this is just looking at the forecasted comprehension that students at various cut points would enjoy when they, or would experience when they read a book. But it wouldn't be persistent. And these are averages too. I mean, you can find individual students that, that may read, their comprehension rate may be lower, but they're incredibly motivated, and they may persist in ways that you and I would not. And then you can have students, these commended. It isn't a reading issue if you have someone failing to hit the commended. It's a different issue. They have my son, 16 years old. Doesn't have a reading problem. He has a problem with if you can bounce it, throw it, kick it, that he's spending too much time doing those kind of things in sports right now. But it's not a reading, but his grades don't have gone down because he's doing too much sports right now. But this is averages. So I mean, students, if you look, this is what the average student would experience. But there are individual differences.
It seems like it'd be worthy to take the study for persistence purposes. We're right now looking at the pipeline, issues, but now we got to look at the persistence issues for higher ed. It seems like.
And also, at what point do we reach out and to TEA to interface, because they're the ones that choose the textbooks?
Right. It has really exciting implications for how fast we can reach the people in developmental ed, because you don't necessarily have to have an extra faculty member if you can direct the student to the subject matter at that student's immediate level.
Well, October 3rd, we're having a meeting of all the college readiness special advisors, and I don't know if it's going to be both of you, but there will be a report from Metametrics on this, so that all the colleges will at least get, and universities will at least get the information, and no doubt it will generate conversation we're talking about.
The concern is, and that's why I asked my question earlier, all convoluted and stuff, but start at that level, how do we ensure that they go to the next,
Yes,
you know?
yeah.
to the
I
next
understand that, but
lifestyle?
at least knowing what level they are.
Right.
And, you know, I don't want to sound like just a bomb thrower or anything, but it could be almost a civil right to give somebody a textbook that they can read if they're paying that money to go to that school. I don't know.
I think there are 26 of our states are textbook adoption states. Texas is a textbook adoption state. 4 of those states now require the textbook publishers to Lexile their books because they get Lexile measures, so they kind of want to see where are they fitting. Texas is not one of those as far as I know.
First, let's just take all the responsibility on the school. We don't teach them to read in 3rd grade. Then we put them in 4th grade and give them a textbook they can't read. Now, there's something wrong with that.
The research is overwhelming that one size does not fit all. There's so much heterogeneity in a 3rd grade classroom, 4th grade classroom, in a community college freshman. There's a lot of heterogeneity, and being able to respond to that is the challenge and the opportunity.
How are we doing it today? Are there, Lexile scores for all the textbooks within elementary school and all that?
We've measured a lot of them, not all of them. As I said earlier, the 4 states that are textbook adoption states that require the publisher to send us the books, so we've measured those books in those states.
But are teachers using those kids' Lexile score to match them?
It depends on where you are in the country and where you are in the district. I know like HISD right now is they have summer literacy programs. They had a summer reading program where students get T-shirts for reading 5 books over the summer. The research, and I'm just a minute on this, I'm sorry, I know I'm probably separating you from lunch, but there's overwhelming evidence that if you look at K-12, just let me look at K-12 right now, that we get all students growing during the school year, and NCLBs have been designed to mitigate against the achievement gap. That's what we're trying to eradicate. The research shows that if you look, that what happens is our low-income kids go home in the summer to what I call text-free zones, no books, no magazines, and reading research, we call it the summer slide, the summer fade, or summer loss, depending on who you read. And what research has demonstrated, if we can just get students to read 5 books over the summer that they're interested in, because you can match up with Lexiles all day long, and if you're not interested in the book I give you, you're not going to read it. So first, interest, and then secondly, though, is Lexile level, because you don't want to give them a book that's so easy that they're not challenged syntactically or semantically to grow their vocabulary. And research has shown that if we can do that, and that's the whole premise behind the HISD summer reading program, was to get students, take those test scores and get them connected to the public library so that we don't, for a set of our students, they don't experience that summer loss and summer slide. In fact, some people at Hopkins now are arguing that the up to 2/3 of the achievement gap could be explained by 12 contiguous summers where we turn off the educational spigot for our low-income kids. So just a footnote.
Or the rigor of the senior year.
Yeah, that's another issue too.
So there are some school districts, though, that are engaged in programs where the teacher knows that she can tell Johnny to go read about photosynthesis.
Yes.
And that's happening, and you can tell us where that's happening?
Yes, in Texas and throughout the country, yes.
Wonderful.
HISD would be probably your big, HISD is the 7th largest school district in the country, and that would be the biggest district that really has made a major investment in Lexiles, and in terms of we have a Spanish Lexile as well, which goes home to parents, and they have something we've done.
In the reading growth curve,
yes.
Do you have any insight into why, like in grades 10th, 11th, and 12th, things kind of plateau out?
Yeah.
Like the growth seems much quicker in the early.
Right. Yeah, it's a great. If you look at a lot of dimensions of behavior, you look at growth charts. You'll see the same thing with height. You'll see the same thing with weight. There's no reason why we haven't. This isn't the 4-minute mile. I mean, we can continue to grow, but typically what happens is we're finding that students don't read as much as they used to read. For one thing, I'm amazed at when you look at. There was one study done that estimated how many words a student reads a year, and I do think there's a big issue. We see it on the 12th grade NAEP, that the 12th grade is, in many respects, students check out, especially in that second semester.
Do you mean they don't read as many books, or they don't read as much, period? For example, have you ever Lexiled the average posting on, what is it? Facebook, MySpace.
We have, that's a great idea. We have not done that. And you know, there's some. Are we reading? It's just taking a different format.
Yeah, but that's a different language.
A lot of new words.
Well, yeah, I can't even. When I even look over my son's shoulder, I don't know what he said. You know, because all the
That's
little
probably
LOLs.
intentional.
Yes. There was an interesting article recently. That, you know, have we become too Googled? That our attention span has gotten. That we've gotten where we can't maintain our attention thread through a novel because we're so used to the sound bites and the nuggets. There's research to be done on that. There's no reason that we cannot continue to grow. It may not grow as fast because in those early years, when we teach children to read, they take off pretty quickly. But there's no reason that it should stop. It may be slower growth, but we should continue to grow throughout our academic years and through as adults. In terms of our reading and vocabulary in particular.
Does TEA have the same information? That's why I heard this.
I don't think they have a copy of this report yet, but that's mainly because we were sharing it with you, but we certainly will send it to them.
Have they done it in the past? Do they have the same, information,
Yes, I would say in a general sense. They certainly do about the public school reading issues.
Because if they were to choose the textbooks that had the Lexiles that would prepare the kids for the next level, then it would change the whole dynamics of their readiness for college.
You got to be that 6 years out. You got to be that 6 years out so you can measure it.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah, this is great. Really, really great. Thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you.
We're going to have about a 20-minute break for lunch, and then we'll be back to continue the agenda. And so we'll be back probably just right after 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
Like a cave.
Results of the College Connections program. If I can have, do I need to get an actual motion to move an agenda item? If it's not, then we'll vote on it.
Move an agenda item?
To the 22nd, to postpone it till the 22nd. We're going to have a series of agenda items postponed till the 22nd committee meeting. Do I need to have an actual vote to move those?
You don't have to. If there were items that would not be taken up today for a vote, you can do is simply make sure that we have those items on the agenda for the 22nd. If you want, however, you can certainly handle that.
Okay. Since they're not, all of these that I'm going to read out are not agenda items that we're actually taking action on. So let me go through them, and then if everybody agrees, then I'll go ahead and get a motion to move those to the October 22nd committee meeting. Agenda item 8, agenda item 9, report and discussion of phase 2 of the test alignment project. Agenda item, are the rest of them keeping?
No.
17. I'm seeing keep on all of these.
Can I start again at 17?
Keep. Call Judy. Okay. Agenda item 16. Did you say 13? Did I?
Educational aid extension program.
That says keep. I'm going through the ones that, okay.
I'm sorry. Yes,
agenda item 16, which is consideration and, oh, now this one actually is one that we have to vote on. Let's take the first ones that were not action items, and if I can get approval to move those to the 22nd. Is that a motion? So moved. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, and we're going to move to agenda item 16, consideration of adopting the staff recommendations relating to a division of responsibilities for obligations of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and agency staff in relation to statutes, rules, and regulations under the jurisdiction of the Participation and Success Committee. Do I have a motion to move that to the October 22nd board meeting? Is there a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, I'm in.
Okay.
Come forward.
Agenda item 16 then will be moved to October 22nd. Agenda item 17, consideration of the AmeriCorps State Grant Program proposal. This note says move to the foundation, will not need board approval. can be taken off or moved to the October 22nd. Why don't we have discussion on the 22nd? Do I hear a motion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, agenda item 17 has been moved. And if we can accept the written updates on P16 initiatives, which is agenda item 18, do I have a motion? So moved. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And agenda item 19, review and discussion of participation in success committee agenda items for the October 23rd coordinating board meeting. A motion? Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that will take us through the agenda with the exception of, sorry, I've got to kind of shuffle. Are we back to 10?
Yes, we're back now to, the rules.
Okay, we're on agenda item 10, consideration of adopting the commissioner's recommendations relating to amendments to section 4.153 through 4.155, 4.159, and 4.161 of board rules concerning early college, high schools, and middle colleges. Kristen Kramer, Program Director of the College Readiness Initiative, will present this agenda item.
No, it's not Kristen Kramer.
No, you're not.
Maybe wanted to present it as the...
And we're glad Abby's presenting it.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you feel that way at the end of the item.
I just wanted to say also, because a minute ago I think Evie was introduced as the senior director. Evie is now my deputy assistant. With the massive amount of work that is being
She's
pumped out of
everybody's executive assistant.
I know. So I wanted to give her due credit. She's done a yeoman's job since I came on board, and it's definitely shown to me that in my absence that unit is not going to stop running and things will keep moving as fast. So I just wanted to recognize her.
Well, thank you. This rule change that we are recommending for the early college, high school programs has a dual purpose. First of all, let me just explain briefly, if you're not familiar with the early college, high school, is it's an opportunity for a targeted population, which is low-income students who are in danger of dropping out of high school or not being college ready, to take up to 60 credits of college credits while they are still in high school. It has to be a planned program between a school district and a community or four-year institution. The program has to be planned and it has to be approved. The programs are approved either by TEA or by the Communities Foundation of Texas, in which case they're part of a network. There are now starting to be early college, high schools that are approved by no one. The coordinating board is involved in this activity because we have a rule that says that you must be tax complete in order to take college courses while you're still in high school, and that you can only take 2 credits per semester in your 11th and 12th grade year unless you get permission from the dean and the principal of the university and the school district. So institutions come to us to get a waiver of that rule. We have found that there are now cropping up some institutions that have never come to anyone for approval. We are also finding that some of the programs perhaps are not of as high quality as we would like, and that some of them are proceeding with the approval from TEA or the Communities Foundation of Texas without coming to us for the sort of concomitant approval that you'd need from our agency. So what we've done with the rules is, first of all, we've clarified a definition between early college, high school, and middle college. Parenthetically, a middle college is one that waives the requirement of 2 courses per semester in the 11th and 12th grade year. So it's just for 11th and 12th grade students as opposed to early college. We are putting our rules in conformity with the TEA rules, and we are requesting that we add a section we have the definition section, and then if you turn the page to 4.159, you'll see that we are adding an evaluation and accountability section. This section here that is 4159B and C is exactly the same wording that you find in the commissioners, the Texas Education Agency's commissioners' rules regarding review of the early college high schools. Now, up until Wednesday, we had no public comment come in. On Monday, we received comments from the Texas Association of Community Colleges, and I believe you have a copy of that letter. It was put before you this morning. There. And they are opposed to the rule change. We are still asking that it be presented to you and that you let us go forward so that we can continue conversation on this and try and work things out with the association prior to the board meeting on October 23rd.
So you're asking us to approve this as proposed with the understanding that you will be in contact with community colleges to work out some sort of an agreement?
Yes.
Is that...
I think you should at least share the concern.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's been expressed by the community college.
I'm sorry. I knew you all had the letter. I forgot. Nobody else did. In the letter, Ray Garcia, who is the executive director of TAC, is suggesting that this is an unwarranted expansion of the commissioner's authority and that it could cause bureaucratic delays by having a review process and the evaluation.
Would it be a better process if we, since we're having a meeting on October 22nd of the committee, that between now and the 22nd, that you work with them to come to some sort of consensus?
You can do that, and then table the item until then, or defer the item, and want to get the words right.
Is that something that you all think would be a better choice? Rather, I hesitate approving something knowing that there's concern.
Changes, it sounds like.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay.
So, would I move to table or move to postpone? While he's coming in, this applies only to public ISDs.
Correct.
Are there any private high schools who have agreements with public community colleges, and how are we going to handle that?
I don't know the answer to that. I'll find out for you. But there are some charter schools, too, as part of the public school. But I don't know about the private schools. I'll have to find
From
out.
our end, that might be something we need to look at.
Yeah. There are right now approximately 30 schools that are identified by TEA or the Communities Foundation that have received recognition from one of those two organizations.
As early college websites.
Okay, so it's my understanding that we can move to postpone action on this pending input from community colleges, and we will take this up on October the 22nd. And if you could get information to us as you receive input from the community colleges, we appreciate it. So do I have a motion to move to postpone agenda item 10?
So moved.
Seconded by Elaine Mendoza, seconded by Elaine Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion is postponed till the 22nd of October. Thank you very much.
And I do appreciate the fact that staff is embracing public comments and responding to them accordingly, so that's awesome.
We didn't get this until the second, I mean, it just came.
That's fine. Agenda item 11, we have already discussed, that's uniform GPA. Agenda item 12 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation relating to amendments section 5.114 and 5.115 of Board Rules concerning mathematics, science, and technology teacher preparation academies. Susan Barnes, Senior Director of Educator Quality, will present this agenda item.
This item is a very straightforward, we believe, change to bring into compliance with other board rules the way that the awards are made to the, awards made for the math and science teacher academies. The way that rule was originally structured, it has the board awarding the proposals. And that's one reason we had to bring you 2 proposals in July, even though they were under the amount of dollars that can be approved without going through that process. So this piece right here is simply to bring that into compliance with other board procedures.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, Lynn made motion, second by...
And real quick question, were there any other comments received?
No, ma'am, we've had no comments on this.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 13 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation relating to an amendment to Section 21.1088 of Board Rules concerning the Educational Aid Exemption Program. Lois Hollis, Senior Assistant to Deputy Commissioner for Business and Finance, will present this agenda item.
She's coming.
There she comes.
Good afternoon, and this is the easiest thing you'll vote on all day.
Promise?
Promise. When we rewrote the rules, we added language. We rewrote this section dealing with students who receive an educational aid exemption, that they are eligible. They don't, now I can't even speak, so maybe I'll take that back. Those students do not have to do student teaching. And it's in statute that students who receive an educational aid exemption do not have to student teach. We rewrote it to make it simpler. We didn't take out the old language. So all we want to do now is delete the old language. It says the same thing, but not as succinctly.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Or first, are there any questions? Motion?
Second.
Okay, moved by Lynn Phillips, second by Elaine Mendoza. Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 14 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation relating to amendments section 22.23 and 22.24 of Board Rules concerning the Tuition Equalization Grant Program. Lois?
All this says is that a student can receive a TEG only for their first master's or their first PhD. They can't receive a TEG to get multiple masters or multiple PhDs. We say the same thing for the undergraduate degree.
Okay. Have a motion? Second. Okay. Lynn Phillips, second by Elaine Mendoza. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 15 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation to authorize the Board Chair and Chair of the Committee on Participation and Success to approve the report on the Texas Fund for Geography Education Program, House Bill 3590, Texas Education Code 77, Texas Legislature. Susan Barnes, Director of Educator Quality, will present this agenda item.
Board members, Susan Barnes again. This is basically a draft report for you to review. It will come back to the full board before we transmit it to the legislature. This is a relatively small program. We operate in conjunction with the National Geographic Society. There is a small advisory committee that we're in the process of filling some vacancies. They will meet in November, make recommendations to the National Geographic Society, meeting in December, and hopefully awards will be made to deliver some training for teachers next year. This report simply brings up to date from the 2006 report to the 2008 status. And so you'll be seeing a final report at the full board meeting in October.
Okay. Any questions? Have a motion?
It's adoption and consideration of the Commissioner's recommendation to authorize the board to file the report. It's our understanding that the coordinating board will file the report, and we were advised that you would need to adopt it.
So the motion would be
to consider adopting the Commissioner's recommendation to authorize the board chair and the committee chair to file the report, approve the report, so that we will be able to distribute it to the legislature December 1st. If you look at the caption at the top page, I believe that captures the recommendation.
Okay, the caption says to approve the report on the Texas Fund for Geography Education Program, House Bill 3590, Texas Education Code. So that's correct.
Yes,
okay. Do you have a motion?
I think we're moving that you and the board chair would have the authority to do it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So moved.
That is confusing.
I second the appropriate move, whatever it was.
I only move appropriately. I think that was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That concludes, I believe, all of the agenda items for the Participation and Success Committee, with many of them being postponed till October 22nd, including another update on the uniform GPA. I want to thank everyone for their indulgence and their commitment to being here and to paying attention and following us with this. I also want to take a moment and personally thank everybody for concerns and support for everyone in the Gulf Coast area. I know that we've gotten a lot of emails and phone calls when our phones were working, and I just want to thank everyone. This is the first time I've sat in a lighted room eating with free ice, and it's really nice, especially with the air conditioning. But everybody in Houston and the whole Gulf Coast area really feels your support, and I just want to thank everyone.
Madam Chair, I would also like to recognize one person that I do recognize, my staff, for all of the work in putting this agenda together, but especially Natalie Coffey, who has just worked around the clock with the Uniform GPA agenda, in addition to all the other work that she has in her assigned area. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you very much. Yes, we really appreciate the work that everyone has done, in particular Natalie. I've seen her name on every single email. Okay, and with that, we will adjourn the Participation and Success Committee meeting, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Phillips to open the next committee meeting.